This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome on board your live safari for today. It is the sunset safari, but of course the sun is very high in the sky and this herd of elephants are enjoying being around some water. My name is Lauren Sarah Arthur. I do have David Norman Easter on camera, and together the two of us are going to take you on a live safari around Djuma Game Reserve here in the Sabi Sands. Now, there's a huge herd in front of us, large adults. I saw a bull earlier. And very, very small young ones, all just coming down to the Waterhole. It's a very, very hot day today. And of course, Waterhole is the best place for these elephants to be. It's 27 degrees Celsius and 81 degrees Fahrenheit, which is fairly warm compared to the morning that we had this morning. It was extremely chilly and all my colleagues were wrapped up very, very warm. But we have many families from all across the world joining us. So a big welcome. We have families from the USA, the UK, India, Brazil, Italy, and Austria. So it's great to have you all on board, and of course we're live and interactive. And what that means is you can talk to us. Send in your questions or your comments, if you have any, to the email address that will pop up, and that's kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. You can ask us about anything you're seeing, or you can just ask us about anything, and we will do our very best to answer them. Oh, I love spending time with elephants. Oh, look at this one's tail, Davy. It's missing half its tail. I wonder what happened. There's still enough tail to act as a fly swatter. That's what tails, one of the reasons that elephants have tails, and one of the functions that elephants use their tails for, as many animals do, is to protect those genitals, the sensitive parts of the body. The anus and, of course, the genitals, depending on male or female. They protect them. They keep away nasty insects or anything that may want to land on the sensitive parts, and they use their tails as swatters. So if we can just look at this one, Darby, the one that's got its bum to us, you'll be able to see what a real tail looks like. It's much longer. And you can see it's got tufts of hair at the end. And they swoosh it from side to side, and it really does help protect those parts. But that poor one earlier, I'm afraid, will not be able to do such a good job of that because it has such a short tail. I have no idea what could have happened, but there's still enough tail to protect the bottom. That's for sure. Elephants also use their tails in communicating. If they're not happy, they will really let you know. The tail will go very straight, very erect, and this is one of the many signs in elephant body language that you can pick up on when you know that they're not happy. They also use it to communicate with one another. Lucas, you're 9 years old in Orlando. My goodness, I went to Orlando when I was a kid and it was the best experience. And you're asking, what does an elephant use its nose for? Well, that big long appendage that you can see that elephant swinging around is called a trunk. And that's a fusion of the upper lip of an elephant and its nose. And it's extended right out. Oh, we've got a nice little bird up here. I can't see what it is. I don't know if it's a kingfisher. You see it, Dovey, just on this dead tree here, perched there. Is it a kingfisher? It's been a very long time since I've seen a kingfisher. Yes, it is. Hello, Mr. Kingfisher. I think that was a brown hooded, but I'm just guessing. It's coming back up. It's coming back up. Let me get my binoculars out. It's very tricky to see in this harsh, harsh sunlight. I think it's a brown hooded kingfisher, one of my favourite birds. I haven't seen one in so long. Lovely, just took a bath. It's dunking itself in the water to cool down. Not only do the elephants need to cool down, but the birds do too. So yes, the trunk is used for so many different reasons. To smell, it's got a pair really long nostrils, I guess. Imagine your nostrils being that long so they can smell from great distances away, and they rely on their keen sense of smell. They also use it in communicating. They touch one another. They're very tactile animals, and they use their trunk to touch. They will use it as a snorkel when they go swimming. Elephants love to swim. They love to be in the water, and they can completely submerge themselves and put the trunk out the top and use it as a snorkel, which I just think is one of the coolest things ever. And the young elephants, the calves, we've got lots of calves here as well, they actually use their trunk to keep calm. They'll put it in their mouth and they'll almost use it like humans use a dummy. So they'll suck on their own trunk, and it helps keep them nice and calm if in case they're, well, feeling scared. They also drink water through their trunk. They pull it up almost like a straw, and the adults can pull up 12 litres in one pull, and then they drop it into their mouth. So there's lots of different sort of ways that the elephants can use their trunks for different reasons. It's a very, very muscular organ that an elephant would struggle to live without. Christy, you're 15 years old from Cape Town. And you're asking a very difficult question. You're asking, why are elephants' tongues pink and giraffes black? It's not really understood, to be honest. Most mammal tongues are pink, and I say most, not all. And the big question about giraffes' tongues is, why are they black? Now, the sort of biological reason they're black is because they contain a lot of melanin. And the melanin gives it its color. But why does it contain melanin? It was once thought to protect it from the sun, because giraffes have very, very long tongues, 45 centimeters long, and they use their tongue when they're feeding in all sorts of different foliage and different vegetations. It can have thorns and spines, so they stick their tongue in, and it was thought once that maybe they use it to protect it from the sun. But this cannot be the case. Giraffes do not have their tongues outside of their mouth for that long. So it's now assumed that maybe the melanin gives the tongue protection, makes it extra thick, extra rubbery, so that when the giraffes do put their tongue into the vegetation, it protects it from all those nasty spines and thorns. So very good question. That is the reason they think giraffes' tongues are black. Now I think we may have to move round. Yes, I think we're going to reposition to get a better view of these ellies, but as we do that, we're going to send you across to James, who wants to say hello.
Hello and welcome. We are heading west into the setting-ish sun, and we're hoping to find, well, also elephants actually, but we'll take whatever comes our way. My name is James Henry, BK is on camera. There is his thumb, and I hope that we're going to have a wonderful afternoon with you today. Great start so far with the elephants, and we'll see what else we can find this afternoon. Remember to send us all your questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. We'll begin our particular safari. No, we won't. It's gone away. That's been the story of my day so far. We were going to start with a bird, but it ran away. It's a beautiful afternoon. Can't believe it's winter when it's this kind of temperature, but it'll cool down quite a lot towards the end of the day. Hello, Tamsini. No, they don't become endangered only because people hunt them and kill them. They become endangered mainly because there are too many people in the world. And what we've done is we've taken away the places that they can live. And so now animals have to live largely only in national parks. And so there's very limited space. In your country, very much like in this country, the national parks have got a lot of people living on the borders, and so the animals can't expand outwards, and the number of human beings in the world is growing faster and faster, and that means that the amount of space for wild animals is just less and less all the time. So it's not only the fact that human beings kill them, it's the fact that there are just too many of us. And we make big farms, and we make villages, and we make towns, and we make industry, and all of that stuff takes away natural wilderness like this, where animals can survive. So it's quite tricky. And in your country, there are a number of, I mean, I don't know a lot about it, but there are a number of areas where you have what we call buffer zones, which are areas outside national parks, where there's a kind of mix of people and wildlife, and that's quite nice. It works quite well, I think, in many areas, and then you get where the people live. But the problem is that in just about everywhere there's a national park, there's just no space for the animals to move out. So they have to stay confined. And slowly those areas get smaller and smaller as the human population grows. So it's a tricky one. Good question, very good question. But that's the main cause of animals not surviving. And some countries do a very good job of looking after the animals that they have. India is a great example. Beautiful reserves for tigers and rhinos and elephants. South Africa doesn't do too badly. And some countries are not quite so good as those two countries. At the moment, my afternoon is starting off rather in the same way as my morning progressed. So let's go back to Lauren, who's still got her elephants, and we'll continue to try and find something.
Good luck, James. I am sure you will find something. We're just going around to the other slide. We're sliding around to the other slide. No, we're going around to the other side to try and keep up with these elephants. They're quite vocal. I think there's two little youngsters that are causing a lot of trouble. Davi and I actually had a really naughty youngster the other day who put his bum on our car and tried to push us. Sometimes the young ones need a telling off, and that's what the adults are there for. They will scold their young. They will say, nope, 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 that's naughty, do not do that. And that is how the youngsters learn, just like humans, really. If young children are naughty, your parents will tell you off. Okay, I'm just going to drive around slowly. You can see in front of us, actually, Davi can give you a beautiful view of very fresh elephant dung. Look at that. Now that is fresh. Ocean, you are 9 years old and you are asking what do elephants use mud for? I think that was correct. I'll wait till Natalie to confirm. Yes. And, oh, very, very, very fresh. I love the smell of fresh Ellie dung. I would get out and pick it up for you, but I can't because there's elephants around. They use mud for many reasons. First, they enjoy it. It feels so good on their skin. Can you imagine having very, very dry skin? Some people do have really dry skin. You're in the hot sun. You've got no sweat glands. You can't sweat. And your skin will get itchy after a while. It's so dry. And can you imagine applying smooth, cold, delicious mud? Oh, that would feel great. It would be like a face mask. How's that, Davi? We apply face masks. Sometimes we put our face masks in the fridge so that when we apply them, they're colder. It's essentially an elephant face mask. It feels good. It probably itches those scratches or scratches those itches that they have because they don't have hands, so they're not able to really itch. Davi and I watched a big elephant earlier scratching its bottom on a tree because it has no other way to scratch, and probably it dislodges parasites or insects that are maybe crawling on their skin. So I think that's why it feels good. It helps cool them down if the mud is cold, which it normally is. Dislodges parasites. And elephants have lots of wrinkles on their skin. You may have noticed, especially African elephants. And they're wrinkly for a reason. It's not just because they haven't had Botox or they don't use moisturizer. It's to hold in the water so that when they do go swimming or they do go in the dam or they do apply mud, these wrinkles will hold in the water and it will help them keep cooler for longer. So it's a special adaptation of elephants, especially African elephants out here in Africa where it gets extra, extra hot. We've got a nice one over here. So the skin, all those wrinkles in the skin is actually said to hold 5 to 10 times more water for the elephant than it normally would. Hello, Mama. You are a big, big mama. Your little one's following behind. The youngsters always stay very close to their moms. They never go too far. Sorry, we're just adjusting my volume here. We're having some volume issues. Zoe, you're 8 years old from the UK and you're asking how long do elephants live for? What a great question. Elephants are said to live between 60 to 70 years old. And the normal cause of death is actually the wearing down of their teeth. Now, I have an elephant's tooth with me. I'm just going to try and find it. It may take me a little moment to find it. And I'm going to show you exactly what they look like. They're made from the same material as our teeth, but they look completely different. This is what they look like. So you can see they're rectangular in shape. They're much larger than our teeth. Can you imagine what I would look like with a big ginormous tooth like that in my mouth? I think it actually covers the entire space of my mouth. It does. And it has very special ridges on it. You see, we call these ridges transverse ridges, and this helps them crunch through the vegetation that they eat. Now, this is a very old tooth, but of course they crunch through sticks and shrubbery and branches, and that's exactly why they have these branches. So they have 6 different sets of molars. We call these molars, and they come up and they move forward in the jaw like a conveyor belt. Once one wears down, the next one will pop up, and so forth. Once that last one, number 6, wears down, the elephants can no longer feed, and that's what causes death. So fantastic question. We're going to try and stay with these elephants just a little longer, but it appears that James has also found a very large mammal.
We have got there some giraffes, 2 lady giraffes. And we haven't had a lot of giraffe around until about a week ago, and suddenly they all arrived. They're just kind of checking things out, and they can see a long way because they're so tall. Because the landscape here is such that the bushes are generally shorter than they are, they can see much further than we can. Unfortunately, I can't go any closer to them because they've gone over our boundary to the west. Let me just go back a bit because we'll get into view of the giraffes, and it sounds like there are 2 impalas having a bit of a fight behind me. Oh, this is quite interesting. It's a little bachelor group of impalas with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 odd youngsters. And then you can see the guy horning that bush. There are about 3 of them that are that age. And these guys have now not managed to take and hold on to a herd of ewes or females. Now he's horning that bush to show how dominant he is, but he's wasting his time. because these guys here don't care, because there are no ladies around. Isn't that interesting? Sharon, animals don't get as sick as human beings, no, not in the same way that we do. And in actual fact, that's coronavirus is a good example of a sickness that humans get, that we spread around to each other because we move so much. So if you take this impala, for example, or this herd of impala, they don't really move from here, right? They live only in this area of the Sabi Sands. If a disease gets into their little group, yes, then it's possible that it can travel from this group to another group to another group, but not nearly as easily as a disease can, such as the COVID virus, which has traveled all around the world, because people move so much greater distances, and the world is a small place for people at the moment, but not so for the animals. So that's one of the reasons they don't get as sick as people do. The other reason they don't get as sick as people do is that they live in the environment that they were evolved to live in. So these impala evolved in Africa, in woodland like this, and savanna, in a certain sort of band of rainfall or wetness, and they don't live anywhere else. They don't go and try and live in Antarctica. They don't go and try and live in the pine forests of the United States or the boreal forests of Russia. They live in a specific area and specific habitat type in Africa, and they don't move from that. They eat what they evolved to eat. They eat grass, and they eat leaves from trees, and if they're being particularly idiotic like this one here, they bash the trees with their horns, but they don't move from that. Now, human beings evolved in Africa, moved out into Europe, and then we did things like we invented agriculture, and so we eat refined carbohydrates and grains. We eat sugar. We discovered how to process things like palm oil and vegetable oil, which we were never designed to eat, and so we consume that. We eat ice cream, and we eat vast amounts of red meat that have got all sorts of things pumped into it. And we don't move around much. We sit on our backsides at school or at work or whatever it is, and we don't do any exercise. And a lot of the diseases that human beings get are born entirely of our lifestyle. So they're not actually viruses like COVID-19 is, or like the common cold is. They're actually the diseases of lifestyle, and these animals simply don't get those diseases because they eat what they're supposed to eat, and they live the way they're supposed to live. Does that make sense? It's quite an interesting question. That's a really good question. I'm just going to have to move the car quickly because there's someone trying to get past. Naturally. Oh, great stuff. We've got some signal up at Ngala. Let's pop across there and see what's happening at Ngala.
So a warm welcome to all the kids that are currently watching in. So I'm Nikki here at andBeyond Ngala, and with me is Marcel behind you with the camera. So currently we just spotted a buffalo bull. You can just see him laying on the edge of the water. What we'll try and do is reposition so we can have a better view in relation to the sun. So just bear with me. I'm just going to slowly move back. Don't want to disturb him, but at least we got some signal this afternoon, so I'm just going to stand like this as we could quickly go back. So it's just a hard space to turn around at the moment, so I just want to quickly glean over our shoulders. Probably take me another 10 seconds, and then we will have a beautiful view of this buffalo. I think while we're still going to see if we can get a view of this buffalo, I think for now, let's quickly go across to Lauren with some elephants drinking.
Another herd has arrived, a completely separate herd, and they're drinking in a very, very small pan. They've all managed to fit themselves around this really small pan. They're all having a jolly good drink. I hope they go swimming, everyone. I'm not sure they will, because the seasons have changed. We are in winter now, and although it's very warm right now, it was so cold this morning, and the water still may be a little bit cold. You see them pulling up the water with their trunk? Remember I mentioned that earlier? They're pulling it up and then they're popping it into their mouths. It's the smallest pan of all pans. I did not get those names, I'm afraid. One more time, Natalie. Tyler and Emmett from the USA, you're asking, do elephants sleep standing up? They can do, but they can also sleep lying down. We drive into many elephants that are sleeping lying down, but they can also sleep standing up. It really depends. They don't sleep that much. Davy's pointing at something. I'm not quite sure what he's pointing at. Are they in the water? They've gone swimming, everyone. They've got their swim walk on. When elephants are walking to the water, they have this jolly skip. They get so excited. Okay, I'll just wait for some of them to head down there and then we'll reposition. So yes, they can sleep in different ways. Of course, when they do lie down, they can't get up very quickly due to their huge bodies. You ready, Davy? They need to reposition very, very carefully in order to get back up again. It's not a simple sit-up like we do, and they really, really don't need to sleep too often. Yes, they're swimming. Shall we have a little look at the swimming Ellies just quickly? This is so lovely. I haven't seen swimming Ellies in so long. Look at that. Isn't that just the loveliest thing? I think they're just crossing to the other side. Oh, how lovely. So as I enjoy watching the Ellies in the water, we are going to send you guys back across to Nikki at andBeyond Ngala with his buffalo.
So this is the buffalo that we saw a little bit earlier, but have a look just off to the right of this buffalo. There's actually these little birds called red-billed oxpeckers, and they're the ones that eat the ticks off the buffalo. And also if there's any wounds on the buffalo, they'll help keep it clean. But have a look at the ones especially off to the right, how they're sitting in the water, flapping their wings and covering themselves with a bit of water just to clean themselves. You'll also notice, like, I'm going to ask myself just to quickly zoom in a little bit on those birds that are in the water at the moment. But have a look at the color of the eyes. You'll notice there's quite a very prominent yellow eye with quite a red beak. Just look at them going down and then splashing themselves with water.
Splish splash, I was taking a bath.
What's the hell? I don't know if everyone heard that, but he was singing the song Splish Splash, I was taking a bath. So it was so interesting earlier on. We didn't expect the link, especially with the buffalo, so we were still moving back. And at that moment, they said, live, live. And then Marcel and I tried to scurry around just to try and position to see this buffalo. But have a look at how nice the sun is on this buffalo at the moment. But you'll notice that he is moving his mouth, but he's not really eating anything. And so for those who know a lot about cows, so like cows have 4-chamber stomachs, so they have to go and eventually lay it down. And buffaloes, because they're so water dependent, they need to drink twice a day. They often go to the water, and as soon as they finish drinking, they'll lay down like this bull here, and then they'll bring up everything they ate during the morning, or even from the evening, chew it and swallow it again. And by doing that, it breaks down the food, so it helps them digest. But on this buffalo's back, look at all these oxpeckers, and I can assume they probably enjoy it because of the fact that the food's right there and the water's right there, and they can take a bath, have a drink, as well as have a nice meal. But this is a pretty big buffalo, and even if you look at his horns, you can see it is a pretty old buffalo. Now, often the older bulls are the ones that are pushed away from the rest of the herd. And then they, and there's a South African term, or an African term, is they become what is known as dagga boys. Now, dagga is the Zulu word for cement or mud. And often what that refers to is these are the old bulls that will go and they would literally roll down in the mud and cover themselves with mud. And I wonder if this particular buffalo, maybe early on in the day, might have laid a bit into the water, and then later on just moved to the side of the water. We can lay down and just maybe chew that food. It's also referred to as chewing the cud. You can see the oxpeckers are now cleaning themselves after a good bath. But when you look at him as well, and just the way that he's positioned, you see how his right foot is almost stretched out a little bit, and then his left foot is tucked in under him. I can imagine it must be uncomfortable, especially that right foot of his. So eventually, I think not too long from now, he'll probably stand up. He probably laid like that in order to support himself and make it more comfortable. But it is still pretty warm, and we actually came down to the water to see if the elephants would come down, but how lucky we were with the buffalo. Hopefully, there'll be some more that comes down a little bit later. For now, let's head across to James with some elephants.
We've been having a lovely time with these elephants here, although this elephant interestingly seems to have a bit of diarrhea. Now, I know that might be a source of amusement in some cases, but it's interesting to me because I wonder if she is eating food now that is going to make her sort of heal, sort of self-medicate, if you know what I mean. And maybe she'll eat drier food that's unlikely to pass through her quite so fast. But at the moment she seems to be eating exactly what elephants normally eat. She doesn't seem to be selecting particularly dry food, but maybe she's selecting food that's got tannin in it. And tannin would help to slow down the stomach. Hello, Sean and Paul. You're wondering how much elephants weigh? Well, it depends on the elephant, really. A big bull elephant weighs about 6,000 kilograms, so 6 tons. Big cow elephant, like this one, probably weighs in the region of 4,500 kilograms, so 4.5 tons. Just going to roll slowly forward because there's a youngster just across the road. There's just 3 or 4 of them here. And they're just a little bit nervous. There we go. And we see that one. She just started to relax. And then unfortunately we had to start the car. And this little one was thinking about crossing the road and following what I assume is her mother. Here comes another big one. Here we go. Let's watch now. Now watch this animal's behavior. Some beautiful mud coloration on her. And that face that she's pulling is one that says, you know what, you're a bit, I don't want you to come any closer. Look at the rich colors on her body from the mud that she's thrown on herself. Isn't that lovely? Lovely dark colors. Across the road now. No, Vikram, elephants here and elephants in Asia do not have houses. They just live in the bush. In fact, all of the animals that you're going to see today just live in the bush. If it's very windy or very cold, they might go and stand in some thick bush so they can stay a bit warmer, or they might stand very close together with other elephants so they can stay a bit warmer. But otherwise, they don't have any way of securing shelter, but they don't really mind. They're able to cope with it. It's not a big thing for them. What an interesting question. It's very sweet here. Now, I think that big cow there is actually picking up the dung of the first cow that we saw crossing the road. In fact, I think they're all doing that. How strange. Maybe they're getting some kind of bacteria from it that they think they need. It's very odd. I think that's what they're picking up, though. Murray and Fishy are wondering how heavy elephants' poops are. Again, depends on the elephant. A tiny baby elephant's poop probably weighs about the same as a golf ball. An enormous elephant's poop probably weighs about the same as, what will we say, maybe a 3-kilogram medicine ball? Quite heavy poop, really, isn't it? I've never thought of it. I've never thought to myself, what does an elephant's poop weigh? See, they're definitely eating her dung, which is very interesting. Now, that might sound disgusting and it might sound a little bit unhealthy, but it isn't. It's very important for especially young elephants that they fill their stomachs with bacteria from adult elephants. And the only way for them to do that is to eat dung from adults. But why are the adults doing it, I don't know, unless maybe we're seeing here a lesson. Maybe she's teaching them. Now, the mother said something to that one that's just made the noise. And he didn't like it very much. Maybe he said, this dung don't taste so good. Why must we eat it? Now watch their body language carefully. Watch her body language. She's looking down the road, head up, ears out. She's just a little bit cautious because there was some Impala there. And also some giraffe. They've moved off. But you see, as soon as she steps out onto the road, she feels exposed. She feels out in the open. They're nervous, these elephants. There's the giraffe popped out again just beyond her. And see, what she's doing now is making sure that we don't come closer. She's making sure that we're not a threat to her babies. So we just keep our voices nice and low. She's watching the movement of the giraffe. That's very interesting that she should take displeasure at the giraffe like that. So I don't know how relaxed that elephant herd with Lauren was, but they're not always very relaxed. Like these four. These four have been quite nervous. So maybe they had a bad night last night, or maybe there's some social upheaval in the herd that we don't understand. They're definitely quite nervous elephants, these ones. See, she's listening and watching. This is also the area where Hukumuri, the male leopard, crossed the road this morning, so maybe he's around. They don't like predators. I know it's almost ridiculous, given how big they are. There are a whole lot more crossing behind us. I'm just going to turn the car slightly so we can see them. Yeah, they just are not that happy, these guys. As soon as I started the car, they ran off. All right, we're going to leave these guys because I don't think they're very comfortable. And so while they melt into the bush, let's go across to Nicky and his buffalo.
So this buffalo hasn't moved too much. He's actually just turned around because I think that other side might have been like quite starting to get a bit uncomfortable. So he just turned around and he's now laying with his left side towards us now. But I just wanted to point out something. I thought I spotted something right in front of the buffalo. I'm going to try and see if we can get it with the camera. So Marcel, do you see from the buffalo, if you go slightly forward, there's like a little branch on the, just under the tree. So you see the leaves on the left? So if you go, there's a branch there. So go straight there. Okay, go up. A little bit more. A little bit more. You see there's another branch. Okay, so focus on that branch. Okay, now to the right of that. So go slightly right towards where the buffalo would be and up. A little bit up. So I just want to see, okay, left. And a little bit to the left. You'll see there's a little bird that is scraped around the elephant dung. And it's actually laying down in the midst of it. It's called the three-banded plover. And well done on that camera work, because it's so hard to see. The only thing that I could see was this little bit of white on the face, and of course this little bit of red on the eye and that white around the back of the head. So I think if some of our viewers are keen on doing some birding this afternoon, there's quite a few birds around the Waterhole, and I also can see where that buffalo is. Oh, that little bird just stood up. Let's have a look. See where it might be off to. But I think there might be a little nest, because often if they lay like that, it might be just to sun themselves or maybe even take a little dust bath. But I think there might be a nest, because it looked like it was laying in a cavity. Nice. Chase H4 from the USA, that's a very good question you had. Now, if we can focus on that buffalo now, just to have a look at the horns. So, if you look at the very top of the horns, you'll notice it looks like there's these little flakes that are off the horn. So, with buffalo, they'll have horns, especially with the males and the females, is to defend themselves against any potential predators. In this case, with the adults, it would probably be something like lions. So you can imagine this buffalo all by himself and away from the rest of the herd. He's pretty vulnerable to lions. But however, just imagine, Marcel, if I could ask if you can get the whole body of the buffalo. So just imagine this buffalo here. He nearly weighs a ton. He has speeds that can reach up to 56 kilometers an hour, so that's probably around 25, 26 miles an hour. Bone crushing skull. And if a lion is very inexperienced, this buffalo, because of those horns, are very capable of killing a lion. So that's one way, as order to defend themselves against any potential predator. The other thing, while they would have it, with the males, is when they do fight each other for dominance, often they will hit each other with their head. So that helmet, or that boss they refer to, that broad section of the horn, is there in order to protect the buffalo's brain from a hard hit or hard impact. You can see that little three-banded plover has actually moved to this side of the buffalo.
I love how they're in.
Yeah, it's so quick. Their legs are so quick. It's normally when Marcel runs to the canteen. So we have finished our session with the kids. However, please don't go anywhere, and you're more than welcome to send in some more questions via email. But I just want to welcome all our regular viewers to a beautiful, warm African day. And you'll see, like today, we are going to focus a little bit on some of the birds that we might see around. But have a look at this three-banded plover. Early on, we saw around the nest. I think it might be a herd. It's really difficult to see which one is a male and a female. I'm still not too sure how to tell them apart. However, the way that they move often reminds me as like Marcel, whenever he hears there's a bit of food going in the kitchen. Often you'll see him running as quickly as this.
You know it. Food is life.
I think it might be going to go out of sight pretty soon. There we go. I think what we can do from here is, it's not going to take long. It'll probably take us 10 seconds or so. But there might be another interest where we can look back at the buffalo, but there's also a chance we might see some of the hippos. Now, I could hear them earlier. I don't know if everyone heard them. That those were the hippos calling. So let's just move. We'll take a little loop around. It takes us 10 seconds. And hopefully we can get to see these hippos as well. But what our plan is going to be for this afternoon, so we are waiting for it to cool down. Now, this morning, unfortunately, there was a bit of problem with our signal. And so we weren't able to show you, but we managed to find those lines. And this afternoon, we'll probably go back and see if that subadult is going to be around with them, because the Ross males have joined up, or at least one of the Ross males that we've seen. So all I'm going to do is just move up here, and then we'll look back onto the waterhole. All right, let's quickly stop here. They are in the distance. Marcel, would that be all right? Okay, let me go forward. All right, so we're just going to stop like this. I think Marcel's just quickly going to wipe the lens. Just bear with us. Might have been from all my excitement. So we'll have a look. The hippos just went under the water now. And you can see on the water, there's quite a few ripples at the moment. So there is a slight breeze blowing. And it's actually coming from us towards the waterhole. Now let's see if those hippos come out. Sometimes it might take up to 5-6 minutes before they come out to just take a breath. And you often see just that spray of the water out of the nostrils when they come out. So normally it works like that. Whenever a ranger tries to predict something, that's when the animals decide, you know what, we're going to show you that we are unique and very special in our own ways. And because of that, we're not going to come out. Yeah, you might see, I think it's that little open patch. Like if you look in the middle of the screen, there's a little section that's light in color. It almost looks like there's no wind blowing there. I think the last time I saw them, they were going down right there. Patent X7, that's a very good question. Like, to be completely honest with you, I'm not too sure when they'll start having those massive teeth. But what I do know, though, is when they are born, since that time, until you find them with those big teeth, is when those teeth slowly start to develop. And it would only probably be around 5-6 years old, or maybe even later on, close to 10 years, when they'll have those massive teeth. Because you can imagine with hippos, so normally they get up to 35 to 40 years in the wild. And it's only going to be here from 10 years onwards where they're really going to be quite big and have those big prominent teeth. But since a very young age, those teeth will start developing. But to answer the question, I'm not too sure at least at what age how big they would be. But I do know that at around about 10, maybe to 13 years is when they have those massive teeth. That when you see them and they open their teeth, it almost looks like 2 hands long inside their mouth. Oh, look. Marcel, I'm on top of the ridge there. Looks like these giraffes are running away. I wonder from what that could be. I just want to quickly have a look. Don't know if you'll be able to catch it because you'll probably just get the heads. But you see all of them are running. And I don't know if maybe the one started running, the others chased. Or possibly there was a predator near the water. And then the giraffes got a spook and then ran off from there. So what we're going to do is I think let's go and investigate. See if there's any sign of anything around. But let's quickly have another look. I just want to stop like this. So often with giraffe, and I've seen it quite a few times, if they do spot a predator in the distance, often what they do is they will focus on that predator. So it's a very good indication to use, especially if you are looking for something in the tall grass. But for now, while we're going to go and have a look and see if there's any signs of a predator, let's head across to James and see what he has in store for us.
James is driving along the western boundary. There were vague rumors, just whispers on the Bush Telegraph, that members of the Ngala Pride, famed lion pride, had crossed over this road into Djuma. Now, unless these lions were flying when they came across, or they are long jump champions and were practicing over this road, I am not sure that these rumors are true. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that they are garbage. But I see them not. Anyway, we shall continue looking along the boundary here very slowly. Also, Hukumuri went into Arathusa yesterday, the male leopard Hukumuri, this morning, sorry, and sometimes he pops out in the evening, sometimes he doesn't. And that's why we're driving very slowly down here. Charlotte, what a very good question. 6 years old in the United Kingdom. Charlotte, only human beings say that lions are the kings of the animal world. I'm not sure that I agree with that, and it's basically storybooks. I don't know why we've decided that they are king of the beasts or king of the animals. I suppose, because lions used to occur absolutely everywhere, just about. They were the most widely distributed mammals in the world. That just means they occurred in a lot of places, including Europe. And maybe because they're so big and strong, and they make people so kind of afraid, they have featured in stories from many different cultures around the world. You'll find them on the Scottish flag, for example. You'll find them on some of your own heraldry in England. The English cricket team and the soccer team, I think, play with the 3 lions on them. So lions are very important to people throughout history in our stories. And I think that's how they came to be known as king of the beasts, rather than that humble animal there, which no one has ever confused for king of the beasts. That is a little squirrel. So that's why I think they have been known as king of the beasts. But for me, the elephants are the actual king of the beasts, because they are so big and so powerful, and no lion is ever going to challenge a big bull elephant. There we are. But I suspect the reason that it's known as king of the beasts is, like I said, because it used to occur in so many different places, and so it occurs in stories from hundreds of different cultures around the world. I'm not sure if lions were ever found in Scotland, but they were certainly found in Europe. Yes, indeed, stuck in bed. All of the properties around us are private reserves. There are no national reserves around us. We're one reserve away from the borders of the Kruger National Park. So if you goes Djuma, and then east and side of Djuma is Torchwood, and then east of that is the Kruger National Park. West of us is Arathusa, that's all private. South of us, all private reserves. North of us as well. So we're surrounded by private reserves, yes. Ngala, on the other hand, is not. Ngala is, their whole eastern boundary is the Kruger National Park. And in fact, much of it a wilderness section of the Kruger National Park where there are no roads and people don't go in, but for the rangers and a few researchers. Which I think is quite nice, really. Sometimes you'd see animals there that had never seen people before. And while they wouldn't sit still for you for very long, it was always nice to know that they were so wild they'd never seen a human being. I always thought that was a nice thing to tell people. As the lion you'd been looking for 3 days ran away on first sighting you. We've come to the end of the western boundary now. I've seen no sign of any Ngala lion nor have I seen any sign of a leopard, so we'll turn towards the east and see where that takes us. It's not unusual to find hukumuri lurking on this corner. Unfortunately, he is not lurking here today. See any leopards there, BK? No. What a pity. Dreadful pity. We'll do a little Waterhole patrol along the south here, because it's a nice warm day. Now, unfortunately, this morning, Ngala didn't have any signal, and so everyone's highlight of the day, which of course is Marcel's fact of the day, could not be delivered. And Marcel has been champing at the bit, phoning us incessantly throughout the day, saying, when can I do my fact of the day? And that time has now finally arrived.
Good afternoon and welcome back to andBeyond Ngala. So this morning we couldn't do any fact because this wonderful piece of equipment which uses cellular network, there wasn't any cellular network available this morning, so we couldn't broadcast at all. And my fact for today is the oldest camera manufacturer that still produces cameras is Linhof, and this was started in 1887 by Valentin Linhof. They mostly produce large format cameras, so that's that they take photos larger than what is known as full frame, so 36 by 24 millimeters, and most of them are usually 4 by 5 and inches for a film frame. And the most well-known line of cameras is the Technica. Yeah, and after Gandolfi and Kodak stopped producing cameras, Linhof became the oldest continuing manufacturer of cameras. Thanks. I'm going to give it back to Nikki.
I'm going to try and follow myself. Okay, thank you. So our plan going forward though is I know some of our viewers are probably keen to know what's happening with those lines and if the sub-adult is still going to be there, or if the Ross males, like what is happening with that pride of lines, as well as what happened with the leopards. So just to give you, just want to quickly go to the map, just to show you more or less what happened this morning and what we found. And as Marcel said, so there wasn't any signals to show everyone around. So this morning we tracked the lions all the way from, it was round about here, and we found them right over there. And then from there on, they started heading in a westerly direction. But what was interesting though is while we were tracking them, sorry, I just want to think just my signal was breaking up there. No, sorry, hold on. Oh, sorry, my signal was just breaking up there. So right over here is where we then found the pride of lions, and they started heading this direction. But then again, we found that leopard with the two youngsters, so what is known as the Shitsalala female and her two. However, we didn't see both of them there. We only saw the young male. So I don't know, maybe if the pride has moved through the area, and unfortunately, because of them moving there, these ones started moving up. So we can only see the two, and we didn't want to put too much pressure on them, so we just left them to be. But hopefully they're all right. At least the mom and the brother are all right, and I'm sure the sister, knowing her experience and knowing how quick and agile she is, she would have moved away. But what I'm thinking this afternoon is we'll probably head into that area, see if there's any signs of the lions. But of course, if we do find that leopard, it would be really nice to give an opportunity to see if we can get her. But also, on this side right over here, we also saw some wild dog tracks. And because it's still nice and warm, we might just move into that area, see if there's any signs of these wild dogs. And if nothing, we'll eventually go back and move into that area for the lions and the leopard. And of course, if we do find some fresher tracks of the leopard, we'll follow. But if not, possibly just go to those lions this evening and see if that young sub-adult is still in the area. And also, they're not too far away from that young female that is currently denning on the reserve. So there is a chance that this pride might eventually join up. I think it's probably going to happen within the next week or two. But as we say, we're not too sure. Hopefully that could be. But for now, we're going to carry on with our drive. While we do that, let's head across to Lauren with some warthogs.
These are not warthogs, just in case there's any confusion there. These are Impala. We did have some warthogs, but sadly, something scared them. I'm not entirely sure what, and they ran off. So we're now looking at Impala. Male Impala, we've got a little bachelor herd here. Actually, we've got 4 here, but behind us, we've got a whole squad of males as well, which is quite unusual for this season because the competition begins. These are older males. Look at the size of the horns. They're not young boys. And of course, rutting season is in full swing. Snorting, swollen necks, and terrorizing the ladies. I'm not sure what scared off the warthogs, but the Impala are not looking very alert, I'm afraid. No, they look very relaxed. Now, not all male Impalas will choose to sort of act dominant and set up little temporary territories. The territories dissolve after rutting season is over. It's not a permanent fixture, but not all males decide to act that way. Just like giraffes, some males will stay more submissive. They'll still get to mate with the females, but they won't take on the challenge of becoming a dominant male and setting up a little territory. It's a lot of work maintaining a territory, and they can absolutely exhaust themselves. Gabriel, you're 11 years old from the United Kingdom, and you are asking when will the rutting season finish? Oh, look at this male's face, it's rather funny. Davi's laughing at his moustache. Let us see it again, little boy. Yes, normally it lasts about 4 weeks, the rutting season. So you have a good sort of 4 weeks of nonsense from the males. Oh, I see what you mean, Davi. It's very sweet. You see the little white hairs under their nostrils. And not all Impala rams will make it through the rut. And why? Because they absolutely exhaust themselves. They focus purely on, as I mentioned, territorial behavior and chasing ladies, trying to protect their little harem that they've created, and they forgo food, sometimes even water. And what this means is that they exhaust themselves, they become weak, they're not entirely strong anymore, and they're a really easy target for predators. So we've got about 4 more. It's just fully started now at the start of May, so I think we've got about another few weeks left of this, the nonsense from the male Impalas. They often do something that we call sheepdog herding, which means they herd all the females together. Sorry, Natalie, what was that? Cannot remember what I was saying. What was I saying, Davi? Ah, sheepdog. So yes, sometimes they herd the females, and it's quite aggressive for being quite a mild-natured Impala the rest of the year, or mild-natured antelope, and they herd the females into their territories and they keep circling them. Circle, 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 almost like a sheepdog does to his sheep. And that's essentially how the males get the females in the first place. And this sort of behavior, as well as the vocalizations and the dominance behavior, eventually brings on estrus in the females. So it's a process. The shorter day lengths act as an environmental cue, which then triggers the testosterone in the males' bodies to rise. Once it rises, they start behaving like this. And their behavior then triggers a biological cue, which is the onset of estrus into the females. And the females' estrus period lasts for 3 weeks. So it depends on when the males really sort of start to bring this on in the females, will it actually end? The rutting season doesn't finish at the same time every single year. So it's a process. So it appears that these males are, well, are you guys not bothering with rutting season this year. I don't think they are. Very relaxed and very quiet. Okay, we're going to leave our moustache friends to enjoy their grass, which seems to be delicious. You see how they all put their head up at the same time there? That's because I made a noise. I'm obviously turning the car on. That's how alert they are. As soon as they hear something, all heads go up. It's just me, chaps. You guys have a fine afternoon. Molly, I have no idea. I have no idea. I guess it would depend on what the danger was. Impalas do have a really keen sense of smell. They have good eyesight both during the day and at night, and they have really good hearing. But as for how long will it take for them to smell danger, I have no idea. Oh, is that a warthoggy? Aha! You guys appear. Now I'm going to stop quite far away because they do get a little bit skittish. But yes, I guess it depends what the danger is. Is it a pride of lions? Is it a sneaky leopard? Is it a human on foot? Is it, I guess it would really depend what the danger was, but they have got a really, really keen sense of smell, impalas. And sometimes they react on the sense of smell. So if they can't see and they haven't heard the predator, because maybe it's a leopard that's been very, very sneaky, then they may smell the predator. And they'll actually alarm call to alert everyone else that something's in the area. They don't quite know where it is and they don't know what it is, but there's a predator here. And it means that once they release that alarm call, every other impala in the herd knows that danger's around, and everyone can start looking, everyone can start smelling, and everyone can start listening. The more individuals on the task, the more likely someone is going to spot the predator. Well, hello, warthoggies. I think this is the 3 warthogs that we see on this road every day. I think it's the same little family. It's difficult to identify them, but I'm almost pretty sure it's the same ones. We all have a joke in camp about your least favourite animal to put on camera. And mine is warthogs. I love them. They're such epic animals, but they're my least favourite to put on camera. Davies is a wildebeest. BK's is an impala. I'm actually not sure what James is. We'll need to ask him. Koi, age 8. You're asking what is the difference, or how can you tell the difference between male and female warthogs? Well, beside the genitals, that's a really, really good place to start for most animals, because it gives the game away straight away. For elephants, rhinos and hippos, it's a tricky matter because their testicles are inside their bodies, but if you can't see the genitals, you can look at the face. Warthogs will differ in size, but they're also differ in the face. Now, they're called warthogs because, believe it or not, they have warts on their face. I'm not sure if we can get a view of them from here. And they have different number of warts. So when you, I'm going to try and see if I've got a photo so that I can show you the difference. It's very, very visible. Yes, I have. Hold on 2 seconds. So the males will have 4 warts and the females will only have 2 warts. And straight away, you can really, really, really tell the difference. It's not the best photo, Davi, but it's one of the ones I've got saved on my phone. Can you see it from here? There we go. Okay, so you see this one? This one has a set of warts here. I'm sorry, it's really not the best photos. And then another set of warts lower down. So that's 4 warts in total, which means that this one's a male. This one appears to have only 1 set of warts, which is 2 in total, which means that it's the female. I'm sorry, it's not the best diagram. I save lots of photos on my phone for moments like this, but that one is actually not the best. So you can just look at their face and straight away you will know if it is male or female. Okay, I'm thinking about heading to Chitwa today, a nice large water body for the hot day, and I've not been in quite a while. So we're still going to make our way south and hopefully end up at that beautiful dam that is known as Chitwa Dam. Okay, oh, you're not that skittish. Okay, you are skittish. We tried. Okay, as I bumble down south to head to Chitwa, we are going to send you back across to James for an update.
Well, we are also down south, but we're not going to Chitwa, obviously. We're going towards Twing Dams. We'll see what we can find at Twing Dams. We found absolutely nothing going on at Treehouse Dam. And then we might wind our way to the Hyena Den. Might be a nice idea. Where we shall marvel at the little cubbies, ideally. Unfortunately, this is a quiet afternoon. Hello, Atamanu in Mumbai, age 14. No. The answer is no. I don't think any of the big five have got colour vision. Most of them see in two tones. Not sure what elephants and buffalo see in. They may see a little bit of colour, but I don't think much. The predators all see only in greens and blues, which means they don't see red. And what about rhino? Rhino hardly see anything at all. I don't know. I don't know exactly what colours buffalo, elephant and rhino see in. I suspect it's largely, it's probably mostly green and blue, maybe a little bit of red, but it'll be very muted colours because they do have better night vision than we do. And you tend to have to sacrifice colour for night vision. A strong smell of elephant dung here. I don't think it was a carcass, I think it was dung. Let's go back and have a little sniffle. There's no carcass hanging from a tree here, is there, BK? I think it is just the poo-poo. It is just the poo-poo of the elephant. I really would like to spend a bit more time with some elephants this afternoon. Maybe at this waterhole that we are coming up to now. Signal might get very briefly dodgy, but then it'll be fine. Oh, that's an easy question to answer, Noah. The most common thing that elephants do is eat. They just eat and eat and eat. They have to eat and eat and eat all day long. Sometimes 15 or 16 hours a day, maybe even more. They must eat and eat and eat. Because a lot of the vegetation out here has, well, fairly poor nutritional quality. And they're so big that they need a lot of it. And so if you see an elephant, it's either having a snooze. If it's a youngster, it might be playing a little bit. And if it's an adult, it's eating. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, look. Now, Skoog, you have asked a very good question, and it is very valid. There are two reasons that you don't see us in red. The first reason is that people don't think a guide should wear red, and so therefore guides don't wear red. The second reason is that a bright shade of red, a bright shade of any color, will reflect light. So a bright red color, bright yellow, bright pink, even bright green, and especially bright white, will reflect light. So if you're walking through the bush and you want to be hidden, if light reflects off you, you're going to be easy to see. And so that's why when you come to the bush, there's a white-faced whistling ducks, and they're now about to have a fight with some little grebes. Look at this is quite interesting. And that's why we say to tourists and why we say to guides, wear muted colors. So colors that don't really... This is very interesting. Look at this. Now, Henry near Zanin got hold of me a while back and said he'd seen these grebes dive or torpedoing some Egyptian geese. I've seen them, African black ducks. I've seen them doing it to these birds. And see how they are kind of almost shepherding the ducks away from them. That's very interesting. Anyway, back to the question on muted colors. If you were to wear a muted maroon color in the bush here, it would be difficult for a predator to see. And the greatest example of that is look how kind of red an Impala is, or a Ngala is, or a Steenbok. To our eyes, it's a really easy color to see when you're out here, but to a predator, it's much more difficult. And so if you were to wear a muted red color, like a maroon or a kind of tannish brown, it would be difficult for predators to see. It's the reflection that you've got to watch out for. But this tradition of wearing khaki clothing is largely just a tradition. There are lots of colors you could wear out here to remain hidden. You could wear grey, it's very effective, dark green, brown, which is just unattractive. What else could you wear? You could even wear blue. You could wear a relatively palish blue color. You wouldn't wear yellow because there's not a lot of yellow out here, and so it's pretty easy to pick up. Muted red for sure. White-faced whistling ducks. And it looks like the little ones are just about to learn to fly. I'm sure at that size they can fly by now. But maybe they're asking their parents if they can go for a fly, and the parents are saying, no, we're doing swimming lessons now, flying later. The grebes are still shepherding them. Let's see if there's a little torpedo action here. Not all birds have shiny colors. A lot of birds don't have shiny colors. And most avian predators, or most birds that are prey, most predators of birds are in fact avian, so they're not mammal predators. Those birds that are preyed on by mammals, such as the ground birds, are very muted colors, such as the francolins and the, what else? Sandgrass, spurfowl, button quails. They're all very muted colors. But you will find very bright browns and coppers and golds on those birds. But those colors blend into the environment. But you do ask a very valid question about why something like a lilac-breasted roller is that color, especially as both male and female are that color. We know why male birds are bright colors. It's to attract females. We know about the risks associated with them being bright colors. But we don't, I don't think, understand adequately why it is that things like lilac-breasted rollers are the colours that they are, because they must be obvious to certainly their avian predators. And they don't use those colours for breeding, we don't think, because they're all the same colour, male and female. Now the grebe seems to be bathing with, no, that's two, no, sorry, it's 3 ducks. 3 ducks in a row. I've just had a really interesting comment from somebody with an utterly unpronounceable name. KNXJDPYHEPIVPB. I'm not surprised that Natalie didn't send this through to me, who says that it's a common mistake that the emblem on the England football shirt contains lions. They're actually leopards. That's very interesting. Thank you, KNXJDYPGHEPIVPB. Great information. Your anonymity will remain. I hope that isn't the name your parents gave you. What is that duck doing? Oh, it's just having a little clean. Huh. Bath time for ducks and grebes. No, I don't think so, sea cantrell, but I don't know. I don't think all birds can see in ultraviolet. I think it's mainly insects that can see in ultraviolet. Perhaps some birds can see in ultraviolet, but I don't know of many birds that can see in ultraviolet, but that's probably just ignorance on my part. You'll find that all birds can see, the colours that they need to in order to survive. So nocturnal birds don't see colour. Nocturnal birds are much better at seeing in the day, at least at night. And so they, much like nocturnal predators, mammal predators, are unable to see colour. And that's why you don't find bright pink owls. It's useless for them to be pink. And it's also why you need to be very careful of shining a light. You've got to be very careful of shining a light on a diurnal bird, because if they take off, they do find it difficult to land again at night because they can't see properly. Comment from, I forget who it's from, who says that Mr. KNXJDYPGHEPIVPB is in fact a member of Elon Musk's family. Thank you, Capricorn. I would agree with you, except that I think that Mr. KNXJDYPGHEPIVPB lives in England, I'm assuming. I'm not going to say his name again. All right, let's move on from these ducks. Let's go to Lauren. She's just driven past me on her way to Chitwa. Let's see what she's going to find there.
Well, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm almost there. I'm turning into Chitwa now. I always get quite excited when I turn into Chitwa. It's a beautiful property, and I have to say I missed it. I really, really missed it when we were not allowed to go there at the start of lockdown. I really, really enjoy coming to this large body of water. And for those of you who are maybe new to watching us, Chitwa never empties. The water volume will reduce, absolutely. It will get smaller and smaller, but it's never been empty. So it's a sort of permanent, larger body of water for animals like hippos, elephants, and your predators. It's sort of rare to see predators drinking at Chitwa when it's full, and there's plenty other water sources around and available water pans. But as water starts to well, becomes scarce, predators will come to Chitwa to drink. We've had some incredible sightings down here. And of course, it is the home to many leopards. Okay, Natalie was just giving me an update from James about tracks for Kuchava and Cub. So now that we're here, we may as well check it out. But it's right past the dam on the southern end. I was actually hoping for doggies. It's been a while since I've seen dogs. We got so used to having them around. I think we had 10 days of dog sightings every single day. And then when they disappear, you start to realize how lucky you were for those 10 days. Ah, isn't it beautiful? Oh, we've got waterbug. A gallon of waterbug. Nahita, I hope I've pronounced your name right. You're 13 from India. And you're a good question about predators. Now I'm just going to position myself. I think they're all boys. This is a lovely little bachelor herd of young boys. Hello. What about down here, Darby? What do you think? Okay. So not all predators do. It depends what predators you are actually talking about that will do the pouncing. So the main ambush predators are your leopards and lions. Now what they will do is they need to remain hidden. They rely on the element of surprise. So therefore they will sneak up on their prey and pounce, and we call this the ambush. Now, wild dogs will not do that, and hyenas will not do that. They hunt in the same way, and we call this coursing. And once they see their prey, they'll run, run, run and chase the prey down. The prey will be able to see them coming, and they normally either get, hello handsome, either get exhausted or they may trip up. And therefore the hyenas or the wild dogs can take their chance. Cheetahs are also slightly different because they're diurnal, which means they hunt mostly during the day. So they do sort of rely on cover. They need to get their timing right. They need to get the distance right. But once they do, they can of course run very, very fast. They're the fastest land mammal. So it's not quite the same as lions and leopards, but all predators do hunt in different ways. So they don't all rely on the ambush. Those that do are your lions and your leopards. This is so lovely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 water bugs. This one at the back, Davy, is a very young boy. A really small one. Just joining the bachelor herd. Learning how to be a boy. Look how small his horns are. That's how I know he's young in comparison to the other ones. Do you know, I have to say, I think this is the first time I've ever seen waterbug drinking before. I always see them coming down here, but they get nervous because they're very exposed here. Look how open it is. Yes. Very exposed. A lot of antelopes, mainly your prey species, get very nervous coming to a body of water like this because it's open. Everything can see them, but they might not be able to see everything. And of course they're bending down to drink, so they're leaving themselves slightly vulnerable. There may be a predator watching them, there may not be. This is so lovely. I'm going to let the waterbug cross in front of me and enjoy looking at their bum circles. As I do that, we're going to send you across to James with some giraffe.
Now this is a big fat male giraffe, and I say big fat because he's in very good condition, but the most interesting thing about him is the growth that he's got on his back right leg. Now, I think we've seen this giraffe for probably years now. I'm not convinced that that growth has got any worse. It's probably as it's always been. It's pretty disgusting. There are ticks all over it. He's just slapped it hard with his fly-swatting tail. I've no idea what it is or what it's doing there. I wonder if there are any veterinarians here who'd like to have a guess. Is it some sort of tumor, benign tumor? Is it some infection that's occurred around the joint that has now turned into a hard pustule? I don't know what a pustule is, actually. I just think it's a really nice word, pustule. I hope that isn't a pustule, because if someone pops it, they're going to drown. But it looks pretty hard to me. And it also doesn't appear to be affecting him in any way. George, you reckon it's a tumour of some description? Ooh, that's quite interesting. Now we've got some action. Fortunately, the sun is putting paid to us getting a decent picture of it. It looks pretty hard, doesn't it? But I also don't think he's limping. So I don't think it's necessarily affecting his life particularly. We'll drive up the road after him, see if he'll let us get on the right side of the sun. And it doesn't look very pleasant. It's certainly not something in the human world you'd go out with uncovered. We're a bit more vain than giraffe, though. Also, they can't really cover these things up. It's not like he can put on his jean pant. There we go. I mean, that looks like an old wound. Yeah, I'm afraid I've got no idea what would have caused that. Maybe it is a tumour. Decide if I can smell it or not. There seems to be a bit of a niff in the air. But it's not new. It's been there for a long time. You can see he does keep hitting it with his tail. That's a nice shot. So the Kraken says it looks like granulation tissue from an old injury. So that's interesting. Maybe it was an injury that was kept open too long by the oxpeckers or something like that. I think there's a herd of buffalo just next to us. Did you hear that, BK? I heard that. Natalie reckons that this chap's embarrassed. He's trying to hide himself. I think he's all right, Natalie. I don't think he's desperately upset about it. He's an old warrior, had his injury for a long time. Yes, these are definitely his battle scars. I'm going to leave him because he's heading into the bush. And because I think I've heard a herd of buffalo. I think I've heard a herd of buffalo. Let me go and see if I have heard a herd of buffalo. Future Vet says best guess is a benign tumor that ruptured because of its size. Okay, thank you for that. There's nothing quite so, before I link you to Nikki, there's nothing quite so relieving, I think, as hearing the word benign in front of the word tumor. Let's go across to Nikki now, who has managed to find, I'm assuming, the great Birmingham Pride.
So we managed to find the pride of lions again, so they haven't moved too far from where they were this morning. And just having another look at the pride, so you can see the white young male is laying right in front of us, and just above it is one of the older females. Now, just looking at the pride, it seems to me there's one Ross male, so one of the big males here. You can see the flies are bothering this one quite a bit. And also now, this is the time of the day when it starts to cool down there. You can see there's a bit of a golden color shine on them. It's that golden hour. So I haven't seen the young male here, and I haven't seen the other Ross male, so it'll be interesting to see when the pride gets up. So the whole pride is scattered in this, like there's quite a bit of grass around them, and there's only these few that are laying in the open. So it'll be interesting to see when the pride gets up and start moving, how many are actually in the pride at the moment. But they are getting a bit more and more restless. You'll see the flies are bothering them. There's a lot of tails that are wagging. You'll see some of them actually picking up their head, licking themselves, like almost grooming it. Oh, see that one off to the left? I think it might be one to get up soon. Just look at those ears twitching. Definitely the flies are bothering them. Now, even sitting downwind from where they are, you can actually smell them. They have quite a strong smell. I think that's one of the reasons these flies are bugging them. Just off to the right, myself, I'm going to ask if you can go to that female we saw a bit earlier. You'll just see all the tails moving, especially the male is just laying just on the other side of that female, one of the big Ross males, the big dominant male. You can see more and more restless. I don't think it's going to be too long before they start getting up. So I know with these lions they've been moving in quite a few areas where we didn't have too great of a signal, but hopefully this afternoon we'll be very lucky with them. Just look at how they're all laying in one row, and you can see the flies. Look at that one, prominent white chin. Lisa pines, their bellies aren't full at the moment. It doesn't look like they've probably had a meal in the last day or two. And if they had one, it probably was something small. But just looking at this male here, you can see like his belly isn't really bloated, and he's also not breathing heavily. Often if they had quite a big meal, you'll see them panting quite a bit. But because of that, and also like normally the youngsters at this time of the afternoon, if they had quite a big meal, they'll often find they're a lot more playful. But when they haven't eaten for, let's say, the last 2, 3, maybe 4 days, you'll see they lay down quite a bit in order to conserve their energy, because they know every little bit of energy counts. I can even see Marcel battling with the flies behind me.
It's spiderwebs.
He says it's spiderwebs, but come on. But just look at how prominent, I mean that middle lioness there, look at how prominent that white chin is. You can just see that little touch of golden color like on her nose, a bit of black on the nose, and then of course that prominent white chin. There we go, you can see she just maneuvered her head now. Ashley from the USA, you asked a very good question. Now lions, the reason why the tongue is like sandpaper, sometimes when they groom themselves, it helps to get rid of, if there's ticks, it helps to brush off the ticks. But also when they do feed, sometimes if they are feeding around the bone, that tongue is so coarse that they're able to lick little bits of meat off the bone. And that also helps to clean up the bones and get as much as they possibly can out of a carcass. But also, like as I said, cleaning themselves, and probably helps with feeding as well. Just look at how this one sister, I don't know, it might be the sister, is laying on this young white male. And now and then actually just brushing that paw over his face. I wonder how long it's going to be before he just has enough and stands up. And it just shows you, like, what I often enjoy about lions is their social structure. Like, 1 minute when they have food, there's no table manners, and every lion for themselves, and they don't regard, or they don't respect each other too much then. However, whenever they finish and they do move up into an area and they decide to lay down, they are very social animals. And just look at how these two are, like, cuddling up together. And even the ones you can see in the back, that female with that white chin, I'm even sure that those are the two sisters, two big females that are laying close to each other. You can see now snapping at the flies. I don't know if it... Monique from London, you asked a really good question in regards to the movement of these lions. So they're not in the same area they were seen yesterday. They were actually moved, if I had to put it down in kilometer-wise, close to in between 5 and 7 kilometers during the evening. And I actually thought this morning, based on where the tracks were heading, they were going straight to that one lioness that was denning. However, just before they reached that particular area in the river, they turned and headed in a north and northwesterly direction, probably looking for opportunity to hunt. Now the wind is blowing from them towards us, and that's the direction that they were moving in. So would you be able to, I'm trying to see, like, it's hard to see it, especially through the grass because he blends in so well, but you see that female that's laying with her chin up in the air? If you go just to the back of her, you can actually see the mane of the big male. Might even see his ear. No, it's hard to see, but it just shows you how well, like, they blend in and how well they camouflage. I mean, you can easily walk here without seeing these lions, especially if the grass is really tall. And this youngster here, just to the right of where this white male is laying down with the other female, you can see how this one is looking up into the tree. Now, often if there's birds of prey that fly over, you'll see the lions will actually stare at them, especially the youngsters. But I think it was just the birch or starling that flew over, and he just caught that little one's attention. Oh, look here, the young male just picked up his head. He's lowered it down again. How's that for just putting a paw on? George, really good question. I'm not too sure. Like, I mean, it does depend on certain areas. I know from personal experience that lions would, in this case, probably establish the biggest territory, because leopards, also depending on sorry, I'm just having a look at how that one's laying with its paw on top of that male's head. But so normally the leopards would have a smaller territory in comparison to that of lions, especially the male lions. I think their territory would probably be the biggest. So these Ross males, probably their whole area that they would cover and that they would take as their own territory would probably be close to, I would nearly say 12,000 hectares, which if you multiply that by 2.5 probably give you acres. Marcel, how much would you say is that? Like 30,000 acres, round about?
12,000.
Yeah, 12,000. Yeah, around about 30,000 acres. That's how big their territory would be. But it would be interesting to see, like, what's going to happen from here, because often with lions, like, normally their general behavior, so it's always, like, it also depends on a lot of environmental factors or a lot of things that have happened within the pride. But then often what happens is, depending if they had a meal or not, and that will sometimes hunger will push them to move quite vast distances in order to look for food. But Katie, H24, you asked a very good question in regards to why are there so many flies around. So firstly, I think these lions do have a bit of a smell on them, and I think that's what's attracting quite a bit of the flies. But also, earlier on, it looks like there were tracks of possibly buffalo, and there's quite a bit of buffalo dung in the area. And I think that could be another reason why there are so many flies. But I do think they are attracted because those lions, for us sitting down when we can actually smell them, they almost have this very strong, blunt smell. It's really hard to describe. Marcel, how would you describe it? It's difficult to explain, but I would almost say, like, if you had to almost like smell damp, wet hair that hasn't been cleaned for quite a while, that's probably, it's not a very accurate description, but I would describe it as that though. Now, early on this morning when we found them, that big male was actually snoring, so we could sit here and listen, and you can just hear him snoring. So I think they had quite a good sleep this today. And bearing that in mind, that lions do sleep for a majority of the day eventually, as it cools down to this time of the evening, and the wind starts picking up, and it starts getting cooler, and as well as the sun starts fading away, it's often the time when they do start moving. But of course, we don't know where the others are in the pride. I can only count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lions. And normally with this pride, there will be more than 14. So I'm not sure where the others are laying down. I'm trying to see if there's any other sign. You know what? I think I can see one right through the trees in front of us. Now, we might just... Marcel, you reckon you'll be able to focus on this one? Like, we'll just show everyone like where they're laying down. So we haven't seen them until now because of the sun. But it is hard to try and see it right through the trees. So what we're going to try and do is, I think, let's just try and loop around to that side and see if we can get a better glimpse. So it won't take long. It's just going to push the vehicle's nose just into this open area right next to us. And I wonder if it might even be, so there's some spider webs. So as we were driving on the road, there's quite a few spider webs. So I wonder if it might even be that young male. So I'm just going to slowly push forward. All I can see at the moment is just a foot up in the air. Let's just stop like that. It's actually the other Ross male that's laying down there. So you can see there is quite a bit of mane, and also looking by his color, and especially that leg of his. Because remember, the sub-adult had that wound on the one, I think it was the right leg. This one you can't see anything, as well as there's quite a bit of a mane and a dark mane as well. So it is the other Ross male. Now I wonder where the rest of the pride is, as well as that young sub-adult. So it'd be interesting to to spend some time with them and see where do they move off to. Because that might even give us an indication of where those others might be. Now it's interesting that yesterday when we found these Ross males, they were in an area not too far away from here, and it does look like their bellies are full. And I wonder, with them moving into the pride, that maybe some of the other pride members have moved off, or maybe even just the young male, and the others might be still in the grass. But while we're going to spend some more time with these lions, I think let's head across to James with some buffalo.
We have got the herd of beefies just on the banks of the great Ummalawamati River. We had a lovely picture of a bull, and here they come, wandering down into the sand. I'm going to stop over here so that they will come out in front of us. I know this isn't the best picture, but they should come out nicely now onto the sand. There's a calf that looks deeply confused by our presence here. Here we go. Come on, little ones. There we are. In front there, Bika, there's another little one who's thinking about coming out. They seem to be a bit nervous. Not sure if it's just... doesn't really make much sense. Not sure why they should be nervous of us. Let's go a little bit further forward. We may be disturbing them. We may have to just back off and wait for them to come down. I mean, I can remember buffalo sightings where you get so close to these things that you could slap them on the bum. Not that I ever did that, of course, but I mean, you could. And yet, here at Djuma, a bit like the warthogs, the buffalo are nervy. This old lady has clearly lost half of her decorations because she is not a youngster any longer. Her days as a ramp model in the buffalo world are unfortunately over. It doesn't mean she doesn't have a contribution to play in society. That must have hurt like crazy. She's trying to smell us now. You can hear a calf shouting through in the background. Michael, I don't think anyone can effectively answer that question. I don't think, but I doubt that the development of a boss has a similar effect to teething. Teething is the eruption of the teeth out of the jaw bones, and I think, you know, it's not like an extension of the jaw. There's a hole that has to be made. There's a whole new root system that grows in. So I don't think so, no. A boss is just sort of a thickening of the skull around where the horn is. So it's a laying on of extra material, the same as the surrounding material. So I think it's probably quite different from teething. But I think that would have hurt her because there is vascularization, there's nerve fiber that goes into the tops of the horns. I don't think there's a huge amount because they use them for fighting, obviously. Not so much the females, but I do think that it would have hurt to have it chopped off. Some of you who may have a bit more knowledge of domestic animal husbandry than I do might know if it hurts cows, perhaps, when they chop their horns off. Right, we've just, while we're sitting here waiting for these things to come out, Mia, my cat, who is a vet, says that the giraffe could have the following: arthritis, mycoplasma, or other infection, trauma, cancer, any number of things could cause that mass on the giraffe. So impossible to tell, I suppose, without taking a sample of the mass and then figuring out what it's made of. Thank you very much, Mia. And also, while I'm here, there is now great discussion and disagreement that the 3 cats on the lion, or on the English football jersey and cricket emblem, are leopards. Most people agreeing that they are in fact lions, and they are the symbol of Richard I. So when they were first used, I don't know. Hello, my dear. Brian, I am in the valley of the great Mluamati River. You will not find it on any map because nobody knows how to spell it, and nobody knows actually whether it is Mluamati, whether it's Molwati, what it is. And it's because Molwati is not a word. It's not a word in any language around here. And I suspect quite strongly that it used to have a name, and that the name was lost somewhere between a Shangaan person telling a white person what it was called, and the white person mishearing and then writing down what he thought he heard, and now it's the Molwati. There's a very famous riverbed at Londolozi called the Tugwan, Tugwan is not a word in any language here. Itegwane is a Zulu word meaning hammerkop. And somehow the Itegwane became the Tugwan. And I suspect quite strongly that that is what happened to the name of the Molwati River. Yes, Dungeon Girl, I'm very sure that animals become completely aware when they become vulnerable, because if they didn't, they'd most likely be killed. So if these buffalo didn't realize that a lion, when they were in the presence of a lion, that they were vulnerable and about to be devoured, they'd just stand there and be devoured. And they certainly don't do that. They become very aware. Maybe you're talking about whether or not they have a sixth sense for whether they're in danger or not. I don't know. My scientifically kind of structured education leads me to say, no, they don't. Half of a piece of me, however, that accepts we have no idea really how animals communicate says, yes, possibly. Maybe they do get a sixth sense when something amiss is about to happen. Just because it hasn't been scientifically proved doesn't mean it won't be one day. Now let us have a cameo for the glorious Laganaria spherica, this beautiful orb, one of my favorite plants out here. We've seen the creepers, we've seen the flowers, and now the great orb. No, that's a leaf, BK. We need the fruit. Can you see the fruits? Like little planets. Isn't that nice? I love them. Sorry, what was that question again, please, Natalie? I've lost it. Oh, yes. Jules, they've got a white pattern under their eyes because of the oxpeckers. The oxpeckers come and they chew away, or they take away the ticks here, and I think the constant tension of having the beaks scraping away there and the feet and the short hair anyway means that the hair just comes off and they get calluses actually. So it's from the oxpeckers. All right, well that was fun. I'm going to hand you back over to Nikki and the Birmingham Pride now, and I think we'll make our way to the hyena den. Hi. We could probably slap your bum, but we won't, I promise.
So earlier on, just to let everyone know what is happening, you'll see the lions are up, and you'll see that one female is staring very intently into the bush right in front of her. So there was it sounded like two Impala fighting each other, and then that whole commotion got that female, or quite a majority of the pride, gotten up and started staring in that direction, and a few actually started moving. Now it does seem like the Impala has quieted down, so it might be that they're still just trying to figure out exactly what is happening before they decide what's going to be their next move. But you can see that female is yawning at the moment, the one at the back. Now with her yawning, it's often a good indication that they might start moving, because often with a pride like this, it will be these bigger lions that will lead the pride and let them start moving. But let's see, she might just move away and then lay down again. See the way that she's sitting down now, she might just have gone down. Often if they go to urinate, or they'll move away from the rest of the pride. Oh, no, I think she's just found another spot in the grass to lay down. But you'll see this young white one, the flies are really bothering him. But how's that light, that beam of light on his face at the moment? can see, even as a young lion, there's quite a few scars around his face, and even on top of his ear, it looks like there's a little gash out of his ear, and that might even have been whenever they do fight for a bit of food. One of the siblings, or probably half brother, half sister, probably got a claw in there. Just look at the way that they're laying down. They're very elegant animals. Now all of them at least have their heads up now as we speak. Gabriella, good question. They do actually. You'll often find with lions in particular, whenever they're ready. Oh, look at that one. Female's going to yawn, just the one above. Oh, it's so quick sometimes with the whole pride. But they do mate all year round. But you do find it that often in the winter time, especially when food are more abundant, in some areas, especially near the water holes or the drying up water holes, that the chances are more likely, but they do mate all year round. So what I want to try and do is there's quite a lot of sounds around. It's mainly from birds, but also it's pretty quiet. Now I'll try and be quiet for a little while. Laura from Uruguay, with the lions in particular. So if one female, so let's say the female that you can see on the screen, the one just past where this white line is, so if she falls pregnant and have cubs, it will only take around about another 2.5 years before she produces another litter. So it all depends on the number of females within the pride that go into or that mate and eventually fall pregnant from there. That it would be more often a year that you'll find youngsters, but with a particular female, it will take up to 2.5 years before she'll have her next litter. But what I wanted to do earlier on is I just want to try and be quiet, and I want you to try and listen to what these lions are listening out for at the moment. Oh, there's actually another lioness coming. Does look like that one lioness that we're seeing at the back, that she has spotted something behind us, but we don't know what it is, because you can see she's looking very intently, and even now and then she'll pick up her head to smell the air. You can see the other ones are also now gleaming back. Just give it some time. I'm also trying, as we sit down here and we're quiet, you might often hear other animals making noises, and that's probably what she's heard, and now she's just focusing in that area. But have a look at how the other lions are actually looking at it, except this young male that's grooming himself. But you'll see everyone is looking at her, and they're probably waiting for her movement. Marcel, would you be able to point out that first female on the right, and then come back? You'll see she's now slowly moving to have a look at what the other one is looking at. And because based on their bellies, I don't think they've eaten in the last 2 days, so any opportunity they can get, they'll probably take. Now she's also looking in the same direction, and it does look like this other one as soon as she starts moving, or even this one if she gets up, there's a good chance we might see the whole pride following. And you just never know with lions, especially if they start moving, what we might see. Listen. It's really hard to hear because it's in the distance, but there was quite a loud snorting sound, and that was from Impala. And it didn't sound like a alarm call that would have said, okay, the lions are here, and warned the other animals. It sounded more like just two males. This time of the year, the Impala do what's called rutting, so they often challenge each other for dominance, and that's the sound we heard earlier on. But have a look at this female that got up. You can see her belly is not too full, so any opportunity they can get, they'll definitely try and take it. And you'll notice, like, the youngsters don't show too much attention what's happening, but the females do. Look at both of those now looking in the same direction. Because the mothers will now, once they start moving, they'll just leave them behind. Dylan, with the lions at the moment, they don't really grow like a massive winter coat, but you can see that they slowly starting to show a slightly longer coat, but not really something that you can see that will differentiate them from, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And even during the winter time, their coats don't really grow that long. It's probably going to be the same as you see it right now. And the other thing about lions as well, you'll notice whenever they do sit down or whenever they had a meal, they groom themselves constantly. So if there was any bit of loose hair, they'll just brush that out with that very coarse tongue of theirs. Nanette, good question. In some areas they do. You'll find that the ticks will actually fall off when they've finished. So some ticks are seasonal, if I can explain it like this. So they have certain life cycles. So one of the life cycles might be to climb on an animal, to drink a little bit of blood, fall off, develop further, then climb on, drink more, then fall off again. And they have these different life cycles. Now, some only have one life cycle, so they move on to the animal, they drink, they fall off, they lay eggs, and they die from there. Now, in some warmer areas, they might be right throughout the year that you could find that, but some cold areas like here, you'll probably find that there will be less and less ticks during the winter time, especially from June, July onwards, and then only start breeding out again probably from, I would say, October, November within the year. But it also depends. With every tick it is different, so it would be hard to answer that question unless someone knows a little bit more about certain ticks that you do find in the area. But from my knowledge is that with most ticks they do differentiate, and they have different life cycles and different times of the year when they do select their hosts. I think what we'll do from here, we're going to stick with these lions another little while. They have lowered their heads again, and it looks like they've lost interest, and that animal that they probably smelled has moved off. But for now, we are going to be heading across to, I think it was Lauren. Not too sure. I think Lauren? Yeah, maybe Lauren. Let's head to her.
It is Lauren. It is Lauren. Well done. You are now with Lauren, who searched the oh wow, look at that, Tommy. It's a little bit bright, isn't it? But still, you pulled it off, didn't you?
What's those lines doing now?
Just going to turn that really loud radio down. The sun is still quite high, but Davi's managed to pull it off and give you a glorious view of those golden skies. Wow, now he's really showing off. We checked the whole of Chitwa, and actually drove some roads that I've not driven in a very long time, but no such luck. It was very quiet, other than the usual suspects around the dam. So we're going to head up to Buffelshoek Dam. We're almost there. Wasn't that stunning? I'm hoping to get there just in time for that perfect sunset. That golden glow that's cast right across the dam. That's what I'm hoping to get in time for. I may need to pick up the pace a little bit. I also haven't had any luck with tracks, I'm afraid. On boundary lines, you mostly find that it's all tyre tracks, because so many vehicles use the boundary lines, that any sort of fresh leopard track or cat track will stand out. But sadly, nothing's standing out at the minute. Oh, I believe that Mr. Henry is at the hyena den, and let's hope the little cubbies come out.
I am at the hyena den. I'm not sure I'm going to be at the hyena den for very long. Rybone is not even at the entrance to the den, and I suspect that the fun and games of the afternoon have probably already finished. And so there she is, lying on her own in a ball in what was possibly the last patch of sun. As far as I'm aware, no young bebe has stuck its head out of the den. I suspect they've had their evening feed and are now sleeping. We'll give her 10 minutes, and then we'll move on. Molly, in many respects, animal communication is very similar to human communications. Obviously, they do not have the language complexity that we do. We are really orders of magnitude more complicated from a language perspective than any other mammal in the world. But some animals do have rudimentary languages. Monkeys are a good example, baboons are a good example, chimpanzees are a good example. And apart from words, just watching her, because obviously her ears are that much sharper than ours. So if she hears something worthwhile, it's worth paying attention. Apart from rudimentary languages, they communicate in much the same way with body language. You know that people communicate with body language. You can tell if somebody's feeling tense, angry, scared. They don't do it through facial expression like we do, except for some of the primates and maybe some of the carnivores. Human beings even communicate with smell, although half the time we don't even realize that we are communicating and being communicated with through scent, through our noses. So, yeah, in many respects, their communication is similar. Elephants have a language of some description. We don't know what they're saying, but they have a language. And we know, of course, that... I was going to give another example. Now I've forgotten what it was. All right, the lions are getting up. Let's go across to them. I'm going to sit here for another 5 minutes and then move on and see what else there is.
So we just saw this one male getting up, and what was interesting is the other male came close to this female, and he did not like that, so he actually went in between this female that's just off to his left, our right, and the other male. So it'd be interesting to see if that other male tries to get a bit closer. But immediately after that, he started marking his territory again, and I wonder if this female is also possibly going into estrus at the moment. You can see he's really laying quite close to her as well. And that's the thing, often with male lions, especially even if there's two brothers around, they will share the mating rights. However, the more dominant one within that pride, which could be this particular male here, would often not tolerate the other male being around. K, good question. I'm not too sure. I think they have the same vision, because like I'll try and use an example. So that young male that's off to the right there, and that young female, the two white ones, I have seen them all laying together, and then the next moment the mother started moving, and the first one to pick up the movement was the white lioness. So I don't think if there is any like weaker side, it would be only marginal, but I do think the side is probably going to be the same. Don't really think they have that much weaker. And I also don't know, later on, if they do get older, if there might be more deterioration of their eyesight, especially if they get older. But from the youngsters, pretty much sharp eyes, is just as good as theirs or as their siblings. Minamu, very good question. I'm not too sure in regards to some of the other. I do know whenever they do get TB, even though it does affect their tuberculosis, I do know that it does affect their lungs, but often a sign of that would also be like their elbows start swelling up. So it looks like these massive abscesses that you find behind their elbows. That I have seen. And I've also seen, especially if lions are underfed or in a very poor condition, that their hairs and skin is in a very poor condition. But any other diseases, I'm not too sure. I'm not familiar with it. I'm sure there's some of our viewers that will probably know a little bit more, that has seen it or have read up a bit about it, but I'm just not too sure other than Mage. But I think for now we're still going to be with these lions. We're going to see where they're going to move to. Let's head across to Lauren with a beautiful sunset.
Well, sadly, the sun has gone down, I'm afraid. It does disappear rather quickly. That ball of gas in the sky is now gone. Down, way past the horizon. We had a beautiful view over the Drakensberg Mountains there. That long mountain range that extends all the way to the left there. It's very long, and you get a perfect view of it here on Buffalo Cutline. Gorgeous. Now, what that does mean, though, that the sky has gone, well, there's still a lot of ambient light, but that sun has gone down past the horizon. That means it will lose light very, very fast. So I better make my way to the dam quickly. We're not too far out. And see if anyone is lurking around Buffelshoek Dam. Oh, okay, as I make my way there, we are going to send you back to those lions with Nikki and see what they're up to now.
So you can see this other youngster that was laying down has now gotten up, and all of them are slowly lifting their heads. But I think this one might have been a little bit irritated with all the flies around. Oh, nice good stretch. You can see when they're young they still have quite a lot of spots, especially like under the belly. It's not as prominent white belly as that of the mother, or some of the older females. So just quickly waking up the others. can see this one is a little bit restless. But how beautiful are those eyes, like this golden amber color. Also quite a bit of pink around the nose. Mrs. Svensson, the older lines are actually close to 14 years old. And it's interesting though, because often, especially when you read up a lot about lion behavior, you find that most lions, especially with females, normally pass away at that age. However, there are well documented cases where they do get older, up to 18 years. And I think in this case, it'd be interesting to see how old these females are going to get. But even looking at their overall health and condition, I would say that they look pretty good for, especially bearing in mind that amount of age. But it's not something that often occurs, especially with prides of lions. I just think with this whole pride, they've just done so well to establish their territory, and they've just been able to keep most of the other prides away out of the area. You can see this one is definitely being bothered by the flies. Jamie, it is possible to do that. I mean, let's say, for example, let's use this this line that we have right in front of us here. Now, normally, some of the things that I use in order to age a line would, of course, be the scratches around the face, possibly the amount of spots that you find on the belly or maybe the side of the leg. It's not always the best indication to use, but it is. And then also the size of the head. Now, if we look at this particular line and we look at those features, I would probably say if it had to be a young male, you'll see a lot more fluff around the ears, but it's only also knowing that a young male from a year and a half onwards would only really start showing signs of that. So then I know if I can see between the legs and I can say, okay, this is a male, and I don't see any of that, then I know this line is less than a year and a half old. So that's a rough estimate. I mean, you're not always going to be to the month, to the week or day specific, but you'll have a rough idea. So I would then estimate her, just judging by her size, the size of her head, also looking at around about her overall length, like from the tip of her nose to the back of her tail. I'd probably say that she's close to a year and a half, maybe a year and a half to a year and 8 months. And it's only going to be from around about 3.5 to 4 years, where she's going to be almost as big as her mother, but only fully grown from the age of probably 6 or 7. There was a little francolin that flew in, and as it flew in, it saw the lions and immediately tried to take off again. You can see these two are looking back at that francolin. It'll be interesting to see if they're going to, because of the francolin moving in the grass, if they're going to get up and go investigate. But normally that's how we tell the age of lions, and especially with males, it's a bit easier to tell because of the mane. Females, it could be quite hard, and so always it's a rough estimate we use, but you won't always be 100% accurate on it. So for now, let's head across to James with a herd of elephants.
We've got a lovely herd that's just come down to the water to have a drink. In fact, there are a few groups knocking about here, sort of gathering for an evening chin wag. It's going to be very quiet for about 2 minutes, because if there is any alarming around, we'll hear it then. And we'll just listen to the sounds of the evening and the elephants drinking. So cute. Now for me this is just the perfect way to end a day. Elephants at the water, some peaceful reflections, lovely light fading away tonight, and the sounds of the birds calling their last and the elephants moving. Poor little fellow. All he has to do is walk round the corner. No, I agree with you, Natalie. Not optimum water technique at all. Lots to learn. Still trying to. He's not going to get shoved out of the way by a sibling. Told to move along. There are two young bulls having a bit of a box across the way there. Just for fun. The exuberance of the night. Or the coming night, exciting them. Off to the right there, BK, sorry. Someone called BJ the other day, and now I can't get it out of my head. Yeah, there's ones on the right that are fighting. Now they've stopped, naturally. Scene playing out in front of us. A young cow, and possibly maybe a cousin, don't think an offspring. Now sometimes you'll come into a situation like this, and it's a bit like now, where they finish their drink, some are feeding, some are just standing. Nobody really seems to want to go away. It's a little bit like they've met and they're having a little bit of a party. Nobody wants it to end just yet. It's a perfect time of the evening to be having a meeting. Hi. What's your name? Oh, Jeremiah. It's a very fancy name you have. Jeremiah? Who gave you that name? Oh. Your mother. Good. I don't think this is Jeremiah's mother coming to say hello, although it could be. Reeds. Would you like us to move? We can. I mean, I'd happily get out of your way if I knew what you wanted. She is now 50 centimeters from the car. Oh, it's glorious. Just magic. Start the engine because I'm sure she'll get a fright. And she'll fall into the water if she tries to walk past us that side. Josh does actually, it's a good question. Silt in the water does affect the elephants. and it's why they will normally seek to have fresh water, and so they won't drink from muddy, disgusting pans like many animals will. They will if they have to, but if they can, they'll just drink fresh water. Now, this whole group has decided they want to come across the dam wall, and we are now in their way. I don't want to give them a fright, but I also don't want to disturb them. This is amazing. I mean, you're welcome to come past here, my friend. If you'd just like to push us back, I'll put the car in neutral. How's that? Oh, there's a big matriarch coming now. This is just unbelievable. Okay. I'm going to move back. I don't think they'll do anything if I didn't. When I start the engine, don't get a fright, everyone. They will probably get a little bit of a fright, and then we'll move back for them. So it's all right. Ooh, calm down, everyone. I just want to give them a bit of space, because they obviously want to come along here. So I knew that would happen. I knew that they would get a little bit of a fright, which is fine, and I'm just going to stop over here, and then they can walk past us. There's lots of space now on the side. So I'm going to watch this cow very carefully now. She's much bigger than all the others. And I think what they're actually trying to get at is the reeds that are growing on the side there. And so now we've moved out the way of the reeds. It would have been absolutely fine if we'd stayed there. Nothing would have happened to us. I just felt like we were being unfair because they clearly wanted to come past. All right, I'm not moving from here, but you're going to go up to Ngala because there is some possible action in the offing.
So there were more Impalas that we heard earlier on. And then after those Impala, I just saw all the rest of the pride getting up and started running in that direction. She's just going to slowly approach and see if we can get the rest of the pride. So normally whenever they hunt, the youngsters will be trailing at the back. She's just going to slowly move forward. You can actually see them. Just going to move slightly forward to here. Here we go. You can see the rest of the pride. I'm going to just lower my head. But if you listen out to the noises, you might just hear the Impala snorting at the lines. It's so interesting because what happened is as soon as they heard the Impalas locking horns, the one lioness stood up and just started running as quickly as she could, and then the one male, not even long after, joined right next to her. But I think those Impala immediately spotted these lions coming on. I think they were too ambitious at the moment and then ran off from there. And now what they're doing is they're basically telling the lions, we know you're here, so you're not going to surprise us. This male coming back, just off to the right. See what he's doing now, how he's moving his back feet. So what he's doing is he's marking his territory, urinating on the ground, scratching his back feet. This is basically to tell any other male lion that wants to move into in this area that this is his and his brother's area. But you'll just see that little vapor. I think like as he was scratching the soil, look at all that sand that just came off. The color now is so beautiful, like this quite a reddish color at the moment. Okay, he's just gone and laid down. So what I want to do from here is I'm just going to slowly move off to the left, so a little bit further away from them, so we can see where the rest of the pride might be in front of us. So just hold on. Slowly move forward. It's actually lioness right next to us. She's just moved, or she was moving from the right towards us, and it's just gone and laid down. Have a look at these youngsters right in front of us. You'll see the one is actually laying on top of the termite mound. So those are two on the bottom, and just look off slightly to the right. Just above that. Look at that one using it as a vantage point. But how is that? A lion on a termite mound with the sun setting in the back. If we zoom out, have a look at that sunset with the lions. Now you'll see where the white lion is laying down with the other one just on the wall behind him. Just off to the right, it looks like there's a hole in the termite mound. And that might even be possibly a warthog's den, where the warthogs will sleep at night. Now often lions, they'll try and see if they can get warthogs, and they have to really try and dig hard in order to get down there to get those warthogs. But I think for now, the warthogs weren't what they were interested in. It's more those impalas, and now that one off to the right, she's using that as a bit of a vantage point, probably just to see where the impalas are. Now, what I know out of personal experience as well is that often when they do try and hunt like this, and they do surprise, or they make themselves known to whatever prey they were moving towards, in this case it's the impala. I'll continue my story soon, but I know James are with those elephants, and the elephants are currently moving past them, so let's head across to him.
They've just started moving again, and they're coming past the front and going down towards the clearings, the other side over there. Nobody gave us any uphill whatsoever, and most of them have actually headed up towards the clearings behind us. So totally relaxed, and all they were saying when they came up to the vehicle was, would you mind? We'd like to come past. If it's not too much trouble, could you back up? Which we did. Now, I must apologize. That wasn't an elephant just before I went off air last time. I tried to hold it in, but I'm afraid a bubble of gas came up from my tummy and I had to let it out. So I do apologize. Yes, it was a burp, and I'm sorry. Excuse me. I should endeavour not to do it again. Yes, Murray, lots and lots of times elephants are born with no tusks, and in fact 50% of Asiatic elephants, probably more, are born with no tusks. The females don't have tusks at all. And so only the bulls have got tusks in the Asiatic elephant. And in our elephants here, I'm going to guess at about 2 to 5% of elephants have no tusks at all. And then there's one straggler, BK, coming up the dam wall now, which I think could be quite fun. I know it's getting very dark, everyone. But just bear with us. I think we should keep this in colour. Because this young bull could be interesting. He's a straggler from the herd because he's asserting his independence. And if we're going to have a prolonged interaction, it's going to be with him. He might just walk straight past us, but he might come and say hi. Yeah, no, I couldn't leave you thinking that it was a hippopotamus or an elephant that had been so ill-mannered. It was me. That was not me, that was an elephant. So he's decided that he's not going to say hello, he's going to carry on with the rest of the herd. Although he'll stop and pretend to eat briefly next to us. You want to go now, BK? Should we go to IR? Okay, we're going to go to IR in the next 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Sorry, Cranky Yankee, I missed your question. Let's have it again. Do elephants burp? Probably not that much. Probably very little, actually. They pass wind out the other end. You'll hear them making very bubbly baths quite a lot of the time. Animals that do burp are generally the ruminants, which have a lot of gas in the foregut. So you'll hear buffalo burping and belching all the time. Cows the same. I imagine Impala and kudu and all the rest of them do it as well. Although I've never seen an Impala walking around going bit, bit. All right, let's go back to the moving lions. I'll turn around, catch up with these guys and follow them onto the clearings.
So you can see these lions have now got up again and they've moved to this open area. And this is probably where those Impala were earlier, and you'll see just off to the left is one of the bigger females, and she's probably the one that tried to use this as an opportunity to see if she can get them a meal for the evening. But now the male has just started to join up, so it'll be interesting to see if the rest of the pride are going to join up in this open area. You can see already the young white male has joined. But you can hear there's like a little contact call. I wonder if it was from this young white male. I see where she was laying down, so sometimes for a male to see if she's ready to mate again, he will sniff the ground, and often if he picks up his head, he'll see it's called a phlegm grin, so he'll pull his face and expose his teeth. Let's just see when he turns towards us. I can actually hear what sounded like one of the male lions behind us. It sounded like he was snarling at another male or another lion. It might be that sub-adult. See, this one is also now looking back. So let's see. I think if that sub-adult will join, you'll probably see that this one will come closer to have to investigate. And remember earlier on I said one of the Ross males, when they came or one of the bigger dominant males, when he came closer, this one wasn't too happy about it. So let's see when that male comes closer to this male. Oh, I don't know if everyone heard, but there was a lion sneezing right next to us. Looks like this female, I think, might have stepped into a thorn. Look at how she's limping with her right or left front leg. See, this other one must have also stepped into a thorn and just quickly taking it out. Now I can hear them calling. Now one of my the biggest thing that I really want to see, so I've seen it before where this whole pride starts roaring at the same time. I don't know if that's going to happen tonight, but I do keep my fingers crossed. Sure, there was a very interesting question from Craig, but I didn't hear it, if you mind repeating it again. So Craig, I would say one of the threats that lions definitely has is, of course, other males. So other lions could be a potential threat. Diseases, potentially. Poachers could also be another threat to them. Loss of habitat. So there's quite a few possible threats. I mean, if you look at human, natural, environmental, when I say environmental, I refer to the natural. But I would say diseases, human conflict, especially when associated with some areas where you do find a lot of the, especially in agriculture, where there's a lot of human-animal conflict because of the lions catching their livestock. Just want to have a look at this male, basically just laid right next to us. And of course, poachers, if they do set up snares for other potential animals, they might catch lions. And then, yeah, I would say the habitat loss, and some areas where the habitat will be destroyed or pushed out in order to make space for agriculture or potentially different land use. So those are the potential threats that lions would have. So we'll stick with these lions for now. Let's head across to Lauren and hear if she has an update for us.
I do not, I'm afraid. I do not have an update. We did go past Buffelshoek Dam, not much happening, and we came all the way back inland. We thought we heard an alarm call, but it was quite distant. So when it's far away, is it an alarm call? Is it a naughty male Impala? Oh, I think Mickey's lions are getting noisy. Let's go back across to them.
So we just had, for that little brief while, the lions started roaring and it was the whole pride. So exactly what I wanted. I was hoping for. But if we give it some time, who knows? Maybe they'll start roaring again. But it was at that minute, there's all of a sudden the one right next to us started roaring. So we'll just have to give it another few minutes and see if they will do that. I can actually hear a lion in the distance. Maybe that will make the rest of the pride call as well. And I wonder if it's not the female, the one that has the 3 youngsters that is calling at the moment. So mark my words, Eric is up tomorrow to drive, and I'm almost sure, because of the luck that I know he often gets on a game drive, and also quite a lot of skill. there's a good chance that he might see the little cubs being introduced to the rest of the pride. Well, I don't want to jinx him, but I'm sure that's a good opportunity. It's a good chance. You can see this male is listening out very intently, and he is hearing the other lions calling in the distance. So let's see. I think maybe not even next 10 minutes or so, then we'll find them roaring again. Jake, age 11 from Dubai, it does vary in terms of their age, because you often find with the younger lions, they don't have as well developed mane as some of the older ones. But then when they get to a certain age, let's say for a male lion, normally from 9, 10 years onwards, you'll start seeing that they lose quite a bit of their mane. And then eventually, like by the time they do unfortunately pass away, that's when they'll have probably also have lost quite a bit of mane. But this one, also, even though he is a big male and he has quite a bit of mane, some lions do have more mane than this. It's also a part of genetics. Oh, he is getting up. I think, let's see, because he's been laying on the outskirts now. Let's see if when he gets closer to his brother, how his brother is going to deal with the whole situation. Nikhil, I would say that lions do have better night vision than us. If we had to spend the whole night here, yeah, our eyes will adapt, but not to the same extent of that of lions. Like, lions are basically adapted for hunting, especially at night, and they're so well equipped with their eyesight. So you'll find even some of the smaller predators like cheetahs and wild dogs, because of how well lions can see at night, they tend to hunt in the day, or most, like not always, but they do tend to hunt in the day in order to avoid that competition. Now, I'm just going to push maybe 20 meters forward so we can see the rest of the pride and see how this male is going to interact with the other male. Let's quickly have a look. Oh, decided to go and lay down right next to his brother. It's so interesting, like earlier on the brother didn't want him close, and now he's all of a sudden accepted him and allows him to lay down close. So for now, like, it is getting pretty dark. We'll spend another little bit of time with them, but let's head across to James with some elephants.
We're just trying to get into... Ooh, there's one right here where we can see them. Try that one there, BK. They're still all around us. The IR light is not very strong, and so we have to be pretty close to be able to see them. There's something very special about being surrounded by elephants, especially at night. When they're in this sort of mood, it makes you feel almost protected which I suppose is probably a silly feeling, but that's what it feels like. Hear them all around us. Feeding, 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 feeding. There's some up ahead there. Let me shift forward a bit. Try there, VK. There we go. If you do happen to be a new viewer, this is an infrared light we're using. So there's no artificial light. Well, there's no artificial white light. There's artificial infrared light, which they can't see. But the camera is very clever, and so it can. This is spectacular, isn't it wonderful? If you ever find yourself on a camping holiday or a tented glamping holiday in the bush, to have the sound outside your tent at night is just the most magical experience. You go to a place like Botswana where most of the accommodation is tented. You'll get them feeding around your tent. It's just glorious. As I've started to do in the last few nights, just simply because the sounds are too nice, I'm going to say goodbye to you now. Thank you for your questions and comments, and let's just listen to the elephants for the last few seconds of the drive. We'll see you tomorrow at 6 o'clock.